There was a time when distance felt like danger. If someone pulled away, you felt it immediately. If a message went unanswered, your mind accelerated. If interest shifted, you tried to restore it. You reached out again. You clarified. You reassured. You adjusted yourself. Not dramatically, but urgently, because withdrawal felt personal. Silence felt like rejection, and rejection felt like something was collapsing. Now something has changed. Someone becomes distant, and instead of panic, you feel space. Someone stops responding, and instead of drafting another message, you pause. Someone shifts their energy, and instead of pursuing, you observe, and part of you wonders, why don't I feel the same urgency anymore? Why am I not chasing? Have I stopped caring? Look closely. You haven't stopped caring. You've stopped collapsing. Carl Jung understood that unconscious dependency fuels pursuit. When we project unmet needs onto another person, they become more than themselves. They become regulation. They become reassurance. They become identity confirmation. If they respond, you feel secure. If they withdraw, you feel destabilized. Earlier, pursuit was not about the person alone. It was about what they represented. Validation, belonging, certainty. When those feel threatened, the ego reacts. Chasing is often an attempt to restore equilibrium, to regain control of connection, to prevent perceived abandonment. Jung wrote extensively about projection, how we attribute our unmet inner needs to external figures. When you project wholeness onto someone else, their presence feels essential. Their absence feels catastrophic. But individuation requires withdrawing projection. When you reclaim what you projected, your worth, your stability, your sense of safety, pursuit softens naturally. Now, if someone distances themselves, you do not interpret it as immediate threat. You may feel disappointment, but not desperation. Earlier, silence triggered narrative construction. What did I do wrong? Did I say too much? Should I reach out again? Now, silence feels informative. It tells you something about alignment. It does not trigger identity collapse. This is not detachment. It is security. Security does not chase. It evaluates. Earlier, you may have equated effort with love, pursuit with care, overextension with devotion. But overextension often masks anxiety. Anxiety about being left. Anxiety about not being chosen. Anxiety about not being enough. As identity stabilizes internally, that anxiety reduces. Jung believed that psychological maturity involves shifting the center of gravity inward. When your stability comes from within, you no longer rely on external pursuit to confirm your worth. You are not passive. You still invest where there is reciprocity, but you no longer chase where there is imbalance. If someone walks away, you let them, not because you lack feeling, but because you respect reality. Earlier, you may have believed that persistence could fix distance, that if you just explained more, tried harder, adjusted yourself, connection would restore itself. Now, you understand something sobering. Connection cannot be forced into mutuality. If someone does not choose you, pursuit will not make them. And chasing someone who is unsure only destabilizes you. Jung warned that ego fragility often expresses itself through over-effort. When the ego feels uncertain, it tries to secure attachment externally. Now, your ego feels less fragile, less dependent, less urgent. You may still feel attraction, still feel interest, still feel attachment, but you do not feel compelled to override someone's withdrawal. You do not try to convince someone to value you. You do not attempt to negotiate your worth. That shift can feel strange, especially if you once identified as someone who fights for connection. But fighting for connection is not always strength. Sometimes it is fear. Fear of loss. Fear of being alone. Fear of facing your own unmet needs. As those fears integrate, pursuit loses its charge. You are not refusing connection. You are refusing imbalance. You may notice that you respond proportionally now. If someone invests, you invest. If someone withdraws, you reduce. You no longer overfunction to compensate for someone else's ambivalence. That proportionality is emotional maturity. Earlier, you may have believed that letting someone walk away meant losing. Now, You see that chasing someone who does not choose you is the real loss, because it requires self-abandonment. Jung emphasized that individuation involved becoming whole within yourself, not dependent on external completion. When you feel internally consolidated, you do not chase. You invite, you engage, but you do not pursue what resists you. That reduction in pursuit may surprise you. You may wonder if you have become colder. But coldness feels numb. This feels calm. This feels measured. You are not indifferent to connection. You are indifferent to compulsion. And compulsion was what once fueled chasing. Now, if someone leaves, you feel the loss. But you do not run after them, because your worth is not up for negotiation. You are not chasing because you do not care. You are not chasing because you no longer collapse when someone walks away. That difference changes everything. Distance no longer equals danger. Silence no longer equals rejection. Withdrawal no longer equals unworthiness. It simply equals information. And information does not require pursuit. It requires discernment. You are no longer chasing anyone, because you are no longer chasing yourself through someone else. If you look back honestly, you'll notice something subtle. You weren't just chasing the person. You were chasing the feeling they gave you, the reassurance, the validation, the sense of being chosen. Carl Jung understood that much of what we call attraction or attachment is projection. We unconsciously project part of ourselves onto another person, especially the parts we have not yet integrated. If you felt incomplete internally, they appeared as completion. If you felt uncertain, they appeared as stability. If you felt unworthy, they appeared as confirmation. And when they pulled away, it wasn't just about them leaving. It felt like your stability was leaving. So you pursued. You texted again. You explained more. You tried harder. You became more available, not because you were weak, but because your nervous system associated their presence with safety. Chasing was regulation. When they responded, you relaxed. When they withdrew, you activated. That cycle can feel like love, but often it is anxiety. Jung wrote about how unconscious dependency creates emotional compulsion. When your sense of wholeness is projected outward, you feel incomplete without the object of projection. The ego then tries to secure the object through effort, through persuasion, through persistence. But individuation requires reclaiming projection. As you integrate what you once outsourced, your worth, your emotional stability, your self-trust, the urgency to chase dissolves. Now, when someone pulls away, your nervous system does not interpret it as abandonment of self. It registers it as mismatch. And mismatch does not require pursuit. Earlier, distance triggered over effort. Now, distance triggers evaluation. Is this mutual? Is this aligned? Is this reciprocal? If not, you reduce energy. You do not escalate it. That reduction may feel unfamiliar, especially if you once equated intensity with passion. But intensity fueled by insecurity is not passion. It is fear of loss. Jung believed that until we integrate our shadow, we will seek in others what we have not accepted in ourselves. If you once chased people who were emotionally unavailable, ask yourself, what part of you was hoping to win them? What part of you needed their approval? Often, we chase not the person, but the validation of being chosen by someone who withholds. Winning their attention feels like proof of worth, but worth that depends on winning is fragile. As your identity consolidates, that game becomes less appealing. You no longer want to prove yourself to someone who is uncertain. You no longer want to convince someone to value you. You no longer want to negotiate for basic reciprocity, because your worth feels internally sourced. Earlier, pursuit felt powerful. Now it feels draining. Earlier, chasing felt like effort. Now, it feels like self-abandonment. That recognition changes your behavior. You still show interest. You still express care. But you do not override someone's withdrawal. If they pull back, you allow it, not as punishment, not as strategy, but as reality. Jung emphasized that psychological maturity reduces compulsion. When you are no longer possessed by the fear of abandonment, you stop acting from it. You do not send the extra message. You do not overanalyze their silence. You do not adjust your personality to regain attention. You remain proportionate. Proportion feels calm, and calm can feel unfamiliar if you once lived in emotional spikes. You may even feel slightly unsettled by your own restraint. Why am I not trying harder? Shouldn't I care more? But caring does not require chasing. Caring requires mutual participation. You are no longer trying to secure what is not freely given. That shift signals internal security. Earlier, you may have feared that if you didn't chase, you would lose them. Now, you understand something deeper. If they leave because you didn't chase, they were never stable to begin with. Chasing cannot manufacture mutual desire. It can only temporarily delay misalignment. Jung believed that the goal of individuation is wholeness, not attachment at any cost. Wholeness does not beg. It does not persuade. It does not overextend. It offers. And if the offer is not met, it withdraws gracefully. You are not less loving. You are less anxious. You are not less invested. You are less dependent. And dependency was what once made distance feel intolerable. Now, distance feels informative. If someone chooses you, you meet them. If someone hesitates, you observe. If someone leaves, you let them, not because you lack emotion, but because you have stopped chasing regulation through another person. You regulate yourself. And self-regulation dissolves pursuit. You are no longer chasing anyone, because you are no longer running from yourself. The deepest shift isn't behavioral. It's structural. You don't chase anymore because you no longer feel unchosen within yourself. Earlier, someone's attention felt like selection. If they responded quickly, you felt important. If they pursued you, you felt valuable. If they withdrew, you felt diminished. Their choice determined your internal state, so you tried to secure it. You tried to remain interesting, available, necessary, because being chosen regulated your self-worth. Carl Jung understood that when the ego has not yet integrated its own value, it searches for confirmation externally. We unconsciously ask others to stabilize what we have not stabilized within. When that stabilization hasn't happened, pursuit feels natural. You chase what confirms you. But individuation changes the source of confirmation. As you integrate shadow, reclaim projection, and consolidate identity, you begin to feel chosen internally. You choose your standards. You choose your boundaries. You choose your direction. And when you feel internally chosen, you no longer need external selection to feel real. Now, if someone is uncertain about you, you do not rush to remove their uncertainty. You let them have it. Earlier, you might have thought, if I just show them more, they'll see my value. Now, you understand. If someone cannot see your value without persuasion, they are not aligned with you. And alignment does not require convincing. Jung believed that psychological maturity involves standing in your own center rather than orbiting around another's perception. When you orbit someone else's attention, you adjust constantly. You monitor. You overextend. You chase. When you stand in your own center, you remain steady. You express interest honestly, but you do not pursue what withdraws. You do not beg for consistency. You do not overfunction in the face of ambivalence. Earlier, you may have equated pursuit with passion. Now, you recognize something deeper. Pursuit often came from fear. Fear of not being enough. Fear of losing connection. Fear of being alone with yourself. As that fear integrates, urgency dissolves. You may still feel attraction. You may still feel excitement. But you no longer feel desperation. And desperation was what made chasing feel necessary. Now, when someone walks away, you experience it as information, not as rejection of your worth. Information about compatibility. Information about readiness. Information about reciprocity. If they do not reciprocate, you reduce energy. You do not increase it. That proportionality is security. Jung emphasized that until we integrate our shadow, we will seek in others what we have not accepted in ourselves. If you once chased emotionally unavailable people, it may have been because part you believe you had earned stability. Now, you no longer believe that. You understand that connection is mutual. It is not extracted, not negotiated, not forced. You no longer try to be more to secure someone. You are simply yourself. And if that is not chosen, you let it be. This is not indifference. It is dignity. Earlier, you may have believed that letting someone walk away meant weakness. Now, you understand that chasing someone who hesitates is self-abandonment. And self-abandonment is the real loss. You no longer abandon yourself to keep someone else. You remain steady, grounded, open but not chasing. Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." Becoming who you truly are includes accepting that not everyone will align with you, and alignment cannot be forced. You are not harder. You are clearer. You are not detached. You are self-contained. Self-containment changes everything. You can care deeply without collapsing. You can desire connection without chasing it. You can feel disappointment without losing yourself. That is individuation in motion. You are no longer running after someone else's attention because you are no longer running from your own wholeness. There was a time when distance felt like a test. If they pulled away, you tried harder. If they hesitated, you reassured more. If they grew quiet, you filled the silence. Because somewhere inside, you believed connection had to be secured. But Carl Jung understood that what we chase often reflects what we have not yet integrated. We pursue excellently what feels unstable internally. When your worth depends on being chosen, you chase choice. When your stability depends on attention, you chase response. When your identity depends on validation, you chase reassurance. But individuation changes the structure of that need. You begin to source stability internally. You begin to feel whole without external confirmation. You begin to recognize that mutual connection does not require persuasion. Now, if someone withdraws, you observe. If someone hesitates, you allow it. If someone leaves, you let them, not from pride, not from detachment, but from clarity. You no longer equate pursuit with love. You no longer equate over-effort with devotion. You no longer equate chasing with strength. Because chasing was often fear in disguise. Fear of being unchosen. Fear of being left. Fear of being alone with yourself. And now, you're no longer afraid of your own company. Jung believed that wholeness emerges when we reclaim the part of ourselves we projected outward. When you reclaim your value, you stop trying to extract it from someone else. Connection becomes invitation, not pursuit. Interest becomes mutual, not negotiated. Love becomes aligned, not forced. You are not colder. You are centered. You are not less loving. You are less anxious. You no longer chase what does not move toward you, because your worth does not increase through pursuit. It exists whether someone chooses you or not. And when that realization settles fully, something powerful happens. If they go, they go. You remain grounded, whole, chosen by yourself.